Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to speak about something deceptively simple, yet profoundly transformative. Get what you want to see. There is more to life. At first glance, it sounds like a call to ambition, a push to chase desires and dreams. But beneath the words lies a deeper truth. Life is shaped not by what happens to us, but by what we choose to focus on, cultivate, and embody. What we see, feel, and imagine has the power to shape our reality. And yet, life itself stretches far beyond the narrow confines of desire and outcome. To see clearly is to understand that our inner world precedes the outer world. Every thought, every image we hold, every belief we nurture influences how we interpret life and how life responds to us. If you focus on scarcity, fear, or limitation, the world will mirror that focus. If you focus on opportunity, growth, and possibility, suddenly doors appear, moments align, and opportunities emerge that once seemed invisible. What you want to see begins first as a seed in the mind, and only through attention, intention, and disciplined action does it manifest externally. Vision is not passive, it is active. It requires clarity, persistence, and the courage to align your inner state with the reality you hope to create. Yet seeing is not the same as wanting. Desire is fleeting, often reactive, and easily distracted by comfort, fear, or comparison. Life tempts us with the illusion that achievement alone is enough. We chase titles, possessions, and recognition, thinking that fulfillment comes from collecting milestones. But life has a broader scope than what can be quantified. It is not a series of checkboxes or accomplishments. Life is experience, reflection, growth, and connection. There is more to life than winning or being seen. The richness of life lies in depth, meaning, and presence. The paradox is that the more we cling to outcomes, the less we see what is truly available. When we obsess over control, success, or external approval, our vision narrows. We miss subtle opportunities, moments of insight, and connections that can transform our journey. Letting go of attachment is not giving up. It is creating space to perceive more, to experience life beyond the boundaries of expectation. By releasing rigid control, we allow reality to unfold, revealing patterns, lessons, and gifts that were hidden by our narrow focus. Pain, struggle, and setbacks are part of this process. They are not obstacles to avoid, but teachers to embrace. Every challenge exposes what we cannot yet see within ourselves. The fear, the assumption, the limitation. Growth comes not from avoiding discomfort, but from engaging with it, understanding it, and allowing it to expand our awareness. Life does not simply happen to those who wait. It unfolds for those who are willing to meet it fully, with clarity, courage, and openness. Discipline and inner alignment are the bridges between desire and realization. It is not enough to wish for clarity, success, or understanding. One must cultivate the inner qualities that support these outcomes: focus, patience, integrity, and presence. When thought, feeling, and action are aligned, what you want to see emerges naturally. When they are not, desire becomes scattered, fleeting, and unfulfilled. The external world is a reflection of the internal state. Mastery of the self is the precursor to mastery of life. Yet even as we pursue vision, we must remember that life's meaning is not confined to achievement. Fulfillment is found in connection, in empathy, in creativity, in awareness of the moment, and in the courage to grow beyond comfort. Life is more than results. It is a continuous process of discovery, insight, and expansion. When we see life this way, the pursuit of what we want is no longer about selfish acquisition, but about alignment with purpose, growth, and the unfolding of potential. So, to get what you want to see, begin within. Clarify your vision, cultivate discipline, embrace pain as guidance, release attachment, and align your actions with your values. And in doing so, recognize that there is more to life than what can be achieved, measured, or possessed. Life is vast, intricate, and ever unfolding. The more you see clearly, the more you live fully, the more you discover that the world you desire is inseparable from the life you choose to inhabit. Clarity creates reality, but the depth of this truth is often underestimated in our hurried lives. To understand it, we must first recognize that the mind is not merely a passive observer of the world. It is an active architect. Every thought, every image we hold, every belief we entertain shapes the lens through which we experience life. When the mind is clouded by confusion, doubt, or distraction, the world appears chaotic, unpredictable, and harsh. Opportunities are missed, relationships are strained, and progress seems slow or impossible. But when clarity is cultivated, the fog lifts, and the path forward becomes visible, not because the world has changed, but because the mind has aligned with a deeper understanding of cause and effect, of intention and action. Clarity is not simply knowing what we want in a superficial sense. It is not a fleeting wish or a casual preference. True clarity is an intimate knowledge of what resonates with our being, what aligns with our values, and what reflects the highest version of ourselves. It is the conscious separation of distractions from priorities, of illusion from truth, of the transient from the essential. When a person achieves this level of understanding, decisions are no longer paralyzing, and actions no longer waver between doubt and desire. Instead, there is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing not only what one wants, but why it is wanted, and how it fits into the broader tapestry of life. Every action we take is preceded by a mental image or concept of the desired outcome. If that image is blurred or inconsistent, the results will reflect the same lack of precision. Consider the way a painter approaches a canvas. A clear vision precedes every brushstroke. Without it, the work becomes a jumble of colors without harmony, a collection of elements without meaning. Similarly, in life, clarity functions as the internal blueprint that guides our choices, our habits, and our responses to external circumstances. When the vision within is sharp, every step taken outwardly is purposeful, directed, and effective. When the vision is hazy, every step becomes reactive, tentative, and often misaligned with one's true intentions. Clarity also demands self-honesty. It is not enough to want a vague sense of success, love, or peace. One must examine the heart and mind with precision, questioning not only what is desired, but also why it is desired, and whether it truly serves growth and well-being. This requires reflection, discipline, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about oneself. Many avoid this work because it can expose weaknesses, contradictions, and areas of neglect. Yet, it is precisely through this confrontation that clarity deepens. The mind, once clouded by denial or wishful thinking, begins to see patterns, connections, and priorities with remarkable accuracy. In this state, one no longer chases fleeting illusions, but directs energy toward outcomes that are both meaningful and attainable. Clarity also functions as a filter against distraction. In a world overloaded with information, opinions, and external demands, the mind is constantly bombarded with inputs that pull attention away from what truly matters. Without clarity, one can become enslaved to the expectations of others, the pressure of society, or the noise of one's own unexamined thoughts. By cultivating clarity, the mind learns to discern between what is essential and what is irrelevant, between actions that move toward growth and those that merely fill time. It is a continuous process of alignment, where each decision and each thought is measured against the standard of the inner vision. Beyond guiding action, clarity transforms perception itself. The world does not change when clarity is achieved, but perception does. Obstacles are no longer terrifying because they are seen as natural parts of the path rather than insurmountable barriers. Challenges are recognized as opportunities for learning and growth rather than random misfortune. Relationships are approached with understanding and empathy because one sees clearly both one's own needs and the perspectives of others. When the mind is clear, life is experienced as a coherent flow of cause and effect rather than a chaotic series of events, and the sense of agency, of being a participant rather than a victim, becomes natural. Developing clarity requires patience and practice. It is nurtured through quiet reflection, mindful observation, and disciplined thought. It requires eliminating the noise of unhelpful habits, limiting exposure to influences that cloud judgment, and cultivating practices that enhance focus, presence, and awareness. Reading, journaling, meditation, and deliberate action all contribute to sharpening the mind, strengthening the ability to see without distortion. It is not a one-time achievement, but an ongoing process of refinement, where each day offers the opportunity to discard illusions and strengthen understanding. Clarity creates reality because the mind, when fully focused and unclouded, does not merely observe life but shapes it. Thoughts, intentions, and perceptions become aligned with action, creating a coherent path from desire to manifestation. Life unfolds in patterns that reflect the internal state of the thinker, And when the internal state is clear, the external world responds with clarity, coherence, and opportunity. Without clarity, one drifts. With it, one navigates with precision. The presence of clarity transforms ordinary actions into deliberate choices, randomness into meaningful sequences, and uncertainty into guided possibility. It illuminates the connection between effort and result, intention and outcome, inner truth and external manifestation. Each decision, each step, each encounter is informed by a precise vision, a strong sense of purpose, and an understanding of the consequences. Clarity becomes the lens through which reality is interpreted, the compass that guides the journey, and the light that reveals the path through the complexity and noise of life. Discipline over desire is a principle that often seems paradoxical at first glance, because desire is immediate, vivid, and intensely motivating, whereas discipline appears slow, restrained, and demanding. Yet it is precisely because desire is fleeting and impulsive that discipline becomes the true engine of lasting accomplishment and growth. Desire may spark action, but without discipline, it is like a flame that ignites brightly and then burns out quickly, leaving only smoke and emptiness behind. Discipline, on the other hand, is the steady, consistent force that shapes character, aligns action with intention, and transforms fleeting impulses into meaningful outcomes. It is the bridge between what one wants in the moment and what one ultimately aspires to achieve over a lifetime. To understand the supremacy of discipline over desire, one must first recognize the nature of desire itself. Desire is inherently reactive. It arises in response to stimuli and seeks immediate gratification. It is fueled by longing, emotion, and attraction, but it is rarely tempered by reflection or foresight. Desire is the urge to eat when hungry, to speak when provoked, to seek comfort when faced with discomfort. These impulses are natural and necessary for survival, but they are often misaligned with long-term goals and higher aspirations. Acting solely on desire may satisfy the present moment, but it can undermine progress, erode self-respect, and lead to cycles of regret or distraction. Discipline, by contrast, introduces intentionality, restraint, and focus into the process of living. It allows a person to act not on the whim of the moment, but according to a coherent plan that serves growth, purpose, and enduring fulfillment. Discipline begins with awareness. It requires understanding that desires, while powerful, are not always aligned with what is truly beneficial. This awareness allows the mind to observe impulses without being dominated by them. When a person cultivates this awareness, they begin to recognize patterns of indulgence, procrastination, and distraction that derail progress. Discipline is the practice of choosing action that aligns with long-term objectives over immediate gratification. It is the conscious decision to say no to short-term pleasures that compromise health, integrity, or growth, and to say yes to efforts that may be challenging, inconvenient, or uncomfortable, but yield lasting benefit. The strength of discipline lies in repetition and consistency. Desire is sporadic and unpredictable. It arises in bursts and fades just as quickly. Discipline, however, is reliable. It is the daily practice of habits, routines, and self-regulation that steadily accumulate into competence, mastery, and resilience. A disciplined mind and body can endure discomfort, maintain focus, and persist in the face of obstacles because it has been trained to prioritize principle over impulse. Where desire is erratic, discipline is steadfast. Where desire seeks the easy path, discipline chooses the path of growth and integrity. Discipline also cultivates freedom, which may seem counterintuitive. At first glance, restriction appears to limit freedom, while desire promises liberation through gratification. Yet the freedom offered by desire is temporary and shallow, often followed by dependence, distraction, and regret. Discipline, however, creates a deeper and more enduring freedom by building control over one's own impulses and by aligning actions with long-term goals. A person who has mastered discipline is not a prisoner of fleeting wants. They are empowered to direct their energy intentionally. They can engage with desire without being consumed by it. They can enjoy pleasure without losing perspective. And they can pursue ambition without being enslaved to distraction. Discipline over desire also strengthens resilience. Life inevitably presents challenges, setbacks, and temptations that test resolve. Those who rely solely on desire are at the mercy of circumstance. They may be swayed by comfort, fear, or distraction. Those who cultivate discipline, however, have an internal anchor. Discipline allows a person to maintain focus under pressure, to continue effort when motivation wanes, and to act with integrity even when the path is difficult. It turns adversity into an opportunity to reinforce character, to refine habits, and to demonstrate commitment to principles and goals. In addition, discipline transforms learning and skill development. Desire may prompt interest in a new activity or project, but without disciplined practice, knowledge and ability remain superficial. Mastery requires hours of deliberate practice, careful attention to detail, and a willingness to repeat actions that are initially uncomfortable or frustrating. Desire alone cannot sustain this process. It is discipline that ensures persistence, that turns potential into skill, and that allows talent to flourish. Every achievement, whether in art, science, leadership, or personal growth, is built on countless moments of disciplined action that overcome the lure of immediate gratification. Discipline over desire also shapes relationships and integrity. Acting on desire without restraint can lead to selfishness, impulsivity, and conflict, whereas disciplined behavior fosters trust, reliability, and respect. A disciplined person does not react blindly to every emotion or temptation. They choose responses that honor values and commitments. They cultivate patience in communication, consistency in action, and responsibility in decision-making. In this way, discipline becomes not only a tool for personal success, but also a foundation for meaningful and lasting connection with others. Ultimately, discipline over desire is not about denial, suppression, or austerity. It is about mastery, mastery of self, mastery of focus, and mastery of action. It is the conscious choice to prioritize enduring benefit over transient pleasure, principle over impulse, and growth over comfort. It transforms energy from chaos into direction, emotion from reaction into purpose, and potential from possibility into reality. Through discipline, a person learns that the power to shape life does not lie in fleeting whims, but in the deliberate, consistent actions that honor vision, values, and long-term aspiration. Inner alignment comes first because the external world is a reflection of the internal state. Before seeking success, recognition, or fulfillment from outside, one must examine the mind, the heart, and the spirit, for without coherence within, efforts outwardly will scatter and lose force. Inner alignment is the harmonious integration of thought, emotion, intention, and action. It is the state in which one's values, beliefs, and desires are in agreement, and every decision flows from a consistent, coherent center. Without this alignment, even the most determined effort can feel like pushing a boulder uphill, met with resistance, confusion, or frustration, because the energy is fragmented, the focus divided, and the purpose diluted. To achieve inner alignment, one must first cultivate self-awareness. This requires observing thoughts without judgment, understanding emotions without suppression, and recognizing the patterns that govern behavior without denial. Many live with fragmented attention, pulled by conflicting desires, social expectations, and habitual impulses. In such a state, actions may appear productive on the surface, but lack depth and sustainability. By turning inward and examining one's own mental and emotional landscape, a person can discern which drives are authentic and which are reactive, which motivations serve growth, and which merely appease fear or ego. This process of introspection lays the foundation for alignment, because clarity about one's inner life is the first step toward coherence. Inner alignment is not achieved through thought alone. It requires the consistent integration of understanding into action. Awareness without application is like knowing the path, but refusing to walk it. Alignment is a practice, a daily calibration between intention and behavior. When values are clearly defined, when desires are consciously chosen, and when actions are intentionally directed, the inner state becomes steady and coherent. This steadiness manifests externally as confidence, clarity, and resilience. Decisions no longer feel heavy with conflict, because they naturally emerge from an integrated self. Energy is not wasted in indecision, avoidance, or internal resistance, but directed efficiently toward meaningful outcomes. The alignment of mind and heart is particularly crucial. The mind provides clarity and reasoning, while the heart carries intuition, empathy, and passion. When these two faculties are at odds, confusion and dissatisfaction arise. A person may rationally pursue goals that the heart resists or feel emotional urges that the mind cannot justify. This internal friction creates tension, stress, and a sense of being out of place, even when external circumstances appear favorable. Achieving harmony between thought and feeling ensures that choices are not only logical, but also resonant with deeper desires and values. This integration allows for consistent motivation, because action becomes a natural expression of the self rather than a struggle against it. Inner alignment also shapes the way one interacts with the world. A person who is coherent internally projects consistency, authenticity, and presence. Others sense this alignment, whether consciously or unconsciously, and respond with trust, openness, and respect. In contrast, internal fragmentation often manifests as inconsistency, defensiveness, or neediness, creating confusion and friction in relationships. By first attending to the alignment of the inner self, a person ensures that engagement with the external world is grounded, intentional, and harmonious. This is why leaders, artists, and creators often emphasize the importance of internal coherence. It is not merely an abstract ideal, but a practical necessity for meaningful influence and impact. Challenges and setbacks test inner alignment because they reveal where coherence is lacking. When a crisis arises, habitual patterns, unresolved emotions, or conflicting priorities become exposed. Those who have cultivated alignment are able to navigate difficulty with calm, clarity, and constructive action because their inner compass is reliable. Those without alignment may react impulsively, defensively, or chaotically, compounding the difficulty and generating unnecessary suffering. Alignment is thus both a shield and a guide, providing stability amidst change and uncertainty. It allows a person to respond to life with intentionality, rather than merely reacting to circumstances, and it ensures that responses remain consistent with values and long-term objectives. The process of achieving inner alignment requires patience and disciplined practice. Meditation, journaling, reflection, and mindful observation are tools that support this integration, but alignment is ultimately expressed in consistent living. Every choice, every habit, and every action becomes an opportunity to harmonize thought, feeling, and intention. Misalignment may appear as stress, procrastination, or inner conflict. Awareness of these signals enables recalibration. Over time, through repeated effort and conscious reflection, the inner self becomes coherent, stable, and naturally attuned to purpose. Inner alignment is also intimately connected to authenticity. When one is aligned internally, actions naturally reflect true beliefs and values, rather than external expectations or social conditioning. Life becomes less a performance and more a genuine expression of self. This authenticity generates energy and motivation that is self-sustaining, because there is no longer a need to maintain appearances or seek external validation. Decisions are made with confidence, effort is directed with precision, and relationships are grounded in honesty and respect. Ultimately, inner alignment comes first because the foundation of any lasting achievement, meaningful relationship, or fulfilled life is coherence within. Without it, external accomplishments are fragile, relationships are strained, and the pursuit of goals becomes a source of tension rather than satisfaction. With alignment, however, life flows naturally, energy is focused, and action is consistent with purpose. It allows for clarity in decision-making, resilience in adversity, and authenticity in every interaction. Inner alignment is not a destination, but a continuous practice, a daily refinement of the self that ensures that what is desired externally is supported and reflected internally, creating a life that is coherent, purposeful, and fully embodied. Pain is a teacher, not an enemy, yet it is one of the most misunderstood forces in life. From an early age, society conditions people to avoid pain, to perceive it as a signal of failure or misfortune, and to seek comfort at any cost. Yet pain is not merely a signal to retreat, it is a messenger, a guide, and often the most honest feedback the universe provides. It exists to reveal weaknesses, hidden truths, and opportunities for growth. To treat pain as an enemy is to resist learning, to ignore guidance, and to limit one's capacity for transformation. To embrace it as a teacher is to open the door to self-awareness, resilience, and mastery over both the inner and outer world. Pain arises in many forms: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Physical pain warns the body of harm, prompting protective action and healing. Emotional pain signals that a boundary has been crossed, a value has been compromised, or a relationship is misaligned. Mental pain often appears as frustration, confusion, or failure, indicating areas where knowledge, skill, or perspective is lacking. Spiritual pain, perhaps the most subtle, emerges as a sense of emptiness, disconnection, or meaninglessness, nudging one toward reflection and deeper understanding. In all its forms, pain is not an arbitrary punishment, it is information, a signal that demands attention and response. The first lesson pain teaches is awareness. When life becomes comfortable, it is easy to drift in habitual patterns, avoiding reflection or introspection. Pain, by contrast, forces attention. It disrupts complacency, shakes routines, and breaks through illusions of control. A failure, a loss, or a setback is often painful precisely because it illuminates areas that require change, effort, or deeper understanding. Pain demands observation: what caused it, how it affects us, and what it reveals about ourselves. In this sense, pain is a mirror, showing not only weaknesses or mistakes, but also unacknowledged strengths, hidden potential, and untapped resilience. The second lesson pain teaches is acceptance. Many resist pain, denying it, suppressing it, or blaming others for it. Resistance often amplifies suffering because energy is spent fighting reality rather than engaging with it. Acceptance does not mean passivity or resignation. It means acknowledging the reality of a situation without distortion or denial. By accepting pain, one can see it clearly, analyze it objectively, and respond effectively. Pain teaches that life cannot always be controlled, that loss is inevitable, that disappointment is part of growth, and that suffering can be transformed into understanding when met with presence and reflection. The third lesson is discipline and endurance. Pain challenges the limits of strength, patience, and perseverance. It asks whether one can continue when comfort is absent, when the body is fatigued, or when the mind is burdened. Enduring pain without surrender builds resilience, fortitude, and self-trust. Just as physical training strengthens muscles by creating controlled stress, emotional and mental challenges strengthen character through repeated engagement with discomfort. The ability to face difficulty, to maintain integrity, and to act despite suffering is a skill cultivated only through experience with pain. Pain also teaches perspective. Often, moments of difficulty highlight the transient nature of circumstance, reminding that no state, pleasure or suffering, is permanent. Experiencing hardship allows one to appreciate ease more deeply and to empathize with the struggles of others. It reveals the fragility and impermanence of life, encouraging humility and gratitude. Pain, when reflected upon, expands awareness of what truly matters, separating trivial worries from essential priorities. It forces a reassessment of attachment, desire, and expectation, guiding the mind toward clarity and the heart toward balance. Another critical lesson is responsibility. Pain often arises from choices, actions, or inactions. By examining its causes, a person can identify areas where accountability is necessary. Rather than blaming circumstances or external forces, pain encourages introspection and ownership. This process fosters maturity, integrity, and empowerment because it teaches that while one cannot always control external events, one can control responses, decisions, and behavior. Pain becomes an instrument of growth, urging the development of wisdom and self-discipline. Pain also cultivates empathy and connection. Experiencing suffering allows one to understand the struggles of others in a more profound way. Compassion is born not from abstract thought, but from lived experience. Those who have confronted disappointment, loss, or adversity are often more patient, understanding, and supportive. Pain transforms self-centered awareness into interconnected understanding, revealing that all beings face challenges and that shared suffering can create bonds of understanding, care, and mutual support. Finally, pain teaches transformation. Nothing in life develops strength, clarity, or resilience like adversity. Each experience of suffering carries the potential for insight, adaptation, and growth. Pain forces one to confront limits, question assumptions, and refine strategies. It strips away illusions, exposes hidden truths, and provides the raw material from which wisdom, courage, and character are forged. Pain challenges, discomforts, and destabilizes, but in doing so, it creates the conditions for evolution, insight, and mastery of self. In learning from pain, a person shifts perspective from victimhood to agency. Pain ceases to be a punishment and becomes a teacher, a guide pointing the way toward growth, understanding, and deeper alignment with life. It reveals the cracks where improvement is needed, illuminates the path to resilience, and shapes a mind and heart capable of facing life fully, honestly, and with strength. Letting go to see more is one of the most profound yet challenging practices in life, because it requires surrendering attachment, expectation, and control. Most people cling tightly to outcomes, identities, beliefs, and possessions, believing that holding on will provide security, clarity, or fulfillment. Yet paradoxically, it is the very act of clinging that obscures vision, narrows perception, and limits experience. When the mind, heart, and spirit are rigidly fixed on particular ideas or desires, the richness of life becomes filtered, distorted, or hidden. Letting go is not about giving up or abandoning responsibility. It is about releasing the need to control, to judge, or to define everything according to preconceptions, and in doing so, opening oneself to a broader, deeper, and more authentic perspective of reality. Letting go begins with awareness of what binds us. These bindings may take many forms: attachments to material possessions, dependence on approval or recognition, rigid beliefs about self or others, unprocessed anger or resentment, and even habitual thought patterns. Each attachment is like a lens that colors perception, narrowing focus and emphasizing what is familiar while obscuring what is new or essential. When one clings to comfort, for instance, opportunities for growth are often ignored because they appear uncomfortable or uncertain. When one clings to identity, the world is interpreted through a limited frame, filtering out experiences that do not fit preconceived narratives. Awareness of these attachments is the first step toward liberation, because one cannot release what is not recognized. Releasing attachment requires courage. It is easier to remain in the familiar, even when it causes suffering, than to confront uncertainty. Letting go demands trust in oneself, trust in the process of life, and trust that surrender does not mean annihilation but transformation. When the desire to control every outcome diminishes, the mind becomes more flexible, the heart more open, and perception more precise. Letting go is not passive resignation, but active participation in life without the distortion of fear, obsession, or possessiveness. It allows observation, understanding, and engagement without being entangled in judgment or expectation. One of the most important areas in which letting go illuminates vision is in relationships. Holding tightly to expectations of others, or to fixed notions of how interactions should unfold, creates friction, misunderstanding, and disappointment. Releasing these rigid expectations allows people to see others more clearly, without the distortion of projection or assumption. It fosters empathy, acceptance, and authentic connection, because the lens through which one perceives is no longer clouded by preconceived judgments. Similarly, letting go of past grievances or emotional burdens frees the mind from recurring cycles of resentment or regret, allowing clarity and insight to emerge naturally. Letting go also transforms one's relationship with time and circumstance. People often cling to planned outcomes and the belief that life must unfold in a specific way. This attachment generates stress, anxiety, and frustration when reality diverges from expectation. By releasing control over results, the mind becomes flexible and adaptive, capable of responding creatively and effectively to changing conditions. Life ceases to be a source of resistance and instead becomes a field of exploration, observation, and engagement. Opportunities that were previously unseen due to rigid focus now appear, and solutions to challenges become accessible through the openness that surrender creates. In addition, letting go encourages clarity of purpose. When the mind is freed from clutter, whether it is worry, doubt, or habitual thought patterns, it can focus on what truly matters. Priorities become visible, values become apparent, and decisions become aligned with authentic intention. Letting go is not about abandoning ambition or neglecting responsibility. It is about releasing the attachment to outcomes as the source of satisfaction and instead directing attention to present action, effort, and engagement. This shift in perspective allows life to be experienced fully and without distortion, because it is no longer filtered through attachment, fear, or expectation. Creativity and insight are also products of letting go. When the mind is rigid and bound by attachment, thinking becomes repetitive, constrained, and narrow. Releasing control opens space for observation, innovation, and new connections to emerge. In this openness, previously unnoticed patterns, relationships, and possibilities become evident. Letting go is a form of mental decluttering, where the clutter of judgment, fear, and expectation is swept aside to reveal the richness of experience. Spiritual growth is perhaps the deepest expression of this practice. Letting go cultivates humility, acceptance, and awareness of the transient nature of life. It teaches that identity, possessions, and ego are not ultimate sources of fulfillment, and that true understanding arises when the self is not rigidly fixed or defensive. The more one surrenders attachment, the more one perceives the interconnectedness of life, the subtlety of cause and effect, and the beauty inherent in presence. This is the way in which letting go allows one to see more clearly, more deeply, and more fully than when the mind is bound by fear, control, or desire. Letting go does not come instantly. It is cultivated gradually through reflection, mindfulness, and practice. Each moment in which the urge to cling arises is an opportunity to release, to observe, and to act from awareness rather than impulse. Over time, the habit of surrender reshapes perception, softens rigidity, and expands vision. Life becomes less about grasping and more about receiving, less about controlling and more about perceiving, and less about resisting and more about understanding. By letting go, one uncovers the vastness of experience, the subtlety of reality, and the freedom that arises when attachment no longer dictates the limits of awareness. Life is more than achievement because it cannot be measured solely by outcomes, recognition, or the accumulation of possessions. Society often teaches that success is defined by milestones, titles, awards, or material gain, and that the value of a person is proportional to what they produce or accomplish. While achievement can bring satisfaction and validation, it is only a fraction of the full human experience. Life encompasses depth, connection, awareness, and growth, dimensions that achievement alone cannot capture. Focusing exclusively on results narrows perception, reduces presence, and can lead to a life that is technically accomplished yet spiritually and emotionally impoverished. Achievement is inherently external. It is observed by others, compared to standards, and often validated through recognition. While these external markers can motivate effort, they do not define the inner quality of experience. A person may climb a corporate ladder, amass wealth, or receive accolades, yet feel emptiness or disconnection if internal alignment, meaning, and presence are absent. Life's richness is not in accumulation, but in engagement with the present moment, in the depth of experience, and in the authenticity of being. Achievement can become a distraction if it is pursued as a substitute for inner fulfillment, rather than as a natural outcome of purposeful action. The pursuit of achievement often encourages a linear outcome-oriented mindset that prioritizes goals over process. While setting goals is valuable, overemphasis on reaching them can obscure the subtler aspects of living: relationships, reflection, creativity, and self-awareness. Growth occurs not only in attaining milestones, but also in the patience, attention, and resilience cultivated along the way. Learning to observe, to engage deeply with challenges, and to respond intentionally is as significant as any tangible result. When life is seen primarily as a series of accomplishments, these formative experiences may be undervalued, dismissed, or overlooked, yet they are essential to maturity, understanding, and fulfillment. Relationships are a dimension of life that achievement cannot fully encompass. Connection with others, empathy, trust, and love are experiences that cannot be quantified or ranked. A person who focuses solely on achievement may neglect these bonds, sacrificing meaningful interactions for the sake of progress or recognition. The warmth of a conversation, the comfort of presence, the shared joy of understanding another human being, these moments cannot be measured by certificates, awards, or financial gain, yet they are integral to a life well lived. Without attention to relationships, achievement risks becoming hollow, leaving a person isolated even amid success. Life is also more than achievement because it includes the cultivation of self-awareness and inner growth. Emotional intelligence, reflection, resilience, and mindfulness are aspects of being that cannot be captured in a resume or trophy case. These qualities shape how one experiences success, interprets challenges, and responds to adversity. A person may achieve extraordinary external success, but remain reactive, anxious, or unfulfilled internally. By attending to inner development, one learns to navigate life with clarity, compassion, and equanimity, transforming every experience into a source of insight rather than mere transaction. Creativity, curiosity, and wonder are further dimensions of life that extend beyond measurable outcomes. The act of creating, exploring, and discovering carries intrinsic value, even when it does not result in recognition or tangible achievement. A painter may never sell a masterpiece, a writer may never publish, and a thinker may never be celebrated, yet the act of creation itself cultivates meaning, satisfaction, and presence. Life offers richness not in external validation alone, but in the engagement with ideas, emotions, and experiences that expand understanding and imagination. Challenges, failures, and suffering also illustrate that life is more than achievement. Difficulty tests character, patience, and perspective. Success alone does not teach resilience or empathy. Pain, setbacks, and uncertainty are essential teachers. A person who measures life exclusively by wins and milestones may fail to appreciate the growth that arises from struggle, the strength developed through endurance, and the insight gained through reflection. These elements enrich experience, deepen wisdom, and cultivate understanding in ways that achievement alone cannot provide. Gratitude, presence, and awareness further reveal the limits of defining life by achievement. Appreciation for the moment, for simple pleasures, for the natural world, and for connection cannot be measured in trophies or outcomes. The joy of noticing a sunrise, the peace in silent reflection, and the warmth of a shared smile are not achievements in the conventional sense. Yet they are central to the quality of living. When life is dominated by striving and attainment, these subtle, yet essential, aspects can be overlooked, leading to a life that is productive, but emotionally or spiritually narrow. Ultimately, life is a multidimensional experience, encompassing the interplay between external achievement and internal fulfillment, between action and reflection, between striving and presence. While goals, milestones, and accomplishments are important components of life, they are not its totality. A full life integrates effort with awareness, ambition with empathy, and success with meaning. Recognizing that life is more than achievement allows for balance, encourages deeper engagement with self and others, and fosters a sense of fulfillment that transcends measurable outcomes.